Hello, this is Senor Quesada once again, and today we're going to learn about reflexive verbs in the present tense. So remember, these are your notes. So on a piece of paper, you need to take notes on the topics I'm going to explain. You need to conjugate all the practice verbs I'm providing. You need to highlight and underline important questions and concepts or ideas. And finally, once you're done, take pictures of your notes and upload those pictures to Google Classroom. Let's begin. Like I said, today we're going to be talking about reflexive verbs. But what is really a reflexive verb? Well, in Spanish, we use reflexive verbs when the subject and the object of the sentence are the same. In other words, we use reflexive verbs when the person doing the action performs the action onto himself or herself. For example, if I have the sentence, I see you, I, the subject, sees you, which is the object of my sentence. But in the sentence, I see myself, I, the subject, see myself as well, which is the object at the same time. So in this case, the subject and the object are one and the same. In English, reflexiveness is often communicated with the words myself, yourself, himself, herself, etc. How do I know if a verb is reflexive? Well, as you guys already know from previous lessons, we have three infinitive endings in Spanish. Those are AR, ER, and IR. You guys can recognize those anytime now. Well, in Spanish, you can pretty much make any verb reflexive just by adding se after the infinitive. So the ending would be arse, erse, or irse. For example, if we have the verb lavar, just means to wash. But if we add se to it, lavarse, that means to wash oneself. Another example would be the verb ver, to see. But if you add se to it, verse means to see oneself, such as seeing yourself in the mirror. Let's talk about those reflexive verbs. Reflexive verbs are very common in Spanish. Every time the action goes back to the same person, the subject, we use a reflexive. Even when the English version of the statement does not have myself, yourself, etc. For example, in the sentences, me baño todos los días, if we were to translate it, it would be I take a shower every day. We don't really have myself in the sentence, but you're the one doing the shower and you're the one getting that benefit of taking the shower. You're the object as well. In the sentence, me siento, I sit down, you're sitting yourself down. So in English, you don't say I sit myself down, but you are the one doing the action and you're the one being affected by the action as well. So you're both the object and the subject of the sentence. Many times we use reflexive verbs to talk about our daily routines, things we do on a daily basis. And reflexive verbs come with reflexive pronouns. This is very important, those reflexive pronouns. Those reflexive pronouns are very similar to the pronouns that we use to express likes and dislikes in Spanish, like me gusta, te gusta, le gusta, nos gusta, and les gusta. They're not exactly the same though. So let's look at verb conjugation in Spanish. As you guys know, verbs are usually made of two different parts, the stem and the ending. Well, reflexive pronouns have one extra part, that's the reflexive. So let's take a look at the verb levantarse, to get up. As you can see, we have the stem levant, that's already underlined. And then we have the ending, which is AR. And finally, we have that reflexive SE at the end. So every time you have that SE at the end, arse, erse, or irse, you have to use a reflexive pronoun with the conjugation. Now, what do I mean a reflexive pronoun? Well, let's take a look at it. This is a regular verb, so we're going to start with the regular pronouns in the conjugation box. Since it's a reflexive one, the first thing we're going to do is pretty much take care of that reflexive. That reflexive is going to become those pronouns that you see highlighted in the conjugation box. Me, te, se, nos, and se. Notice that those pronouns are exactly the same as the ones we use to express likes and dislikes. Me gusta, te gusta, nos gusta. The ones that are different are going to be the third person pronouns. Instead of using le and les, we're just going to be using se. Now, once that we have that reflexive pronoun, the second thing we do is take care of the stem. And if it's a regular verb, remember, we do not have any changes on the stem. So as you can see, the stem is the same throughout. And last but not least, we do have an AR verb. So we're going to follow the endings for AR verbs. And those are as follow. So to say that I get up, it's going to be me levanto. To say that you get up yourself, it's going to be te levantas. To say that he, she, or you, the formal one, he's going to get up himself, she's going to get up herself, or you are going to get up yourself. Plural one is going to be se levanta. We are going to get up ourselves is going to be nos levantamos, and they are going to get up themselves is se levantan. So as you can see, these pronouns are really, really important when it comes to conjugating. Let's look at another example. This time the verb is going to be a stem changing verb. So as you can see, we have, once again, the stem, we have the ending, and then we have the reflexive. Now, as you can see, that O, that is a stem changing where the O changes to UE when we conjugate it. So we're going to follow the same steps that we follow when we conjugate verbs. So first of all, let's begin with the conjugation box once again. And first thing we're going to do is add the reflexive pronouns. Again, that SE becomes those pronouns when we conjugate it. The second thing we do is usually add the stem. So there is a stem. As you can see, the stem has all those stem changes from O to UE in pretty much all of its conjugations except the nosotros form. Remember, nosotros form always keeps the stem in the present tense. Last thing we do, this is an AR verb, so we add the endings that correspond to AR verbs. So yo me acuesto, I lay myself down. Tú te acuestas, you lay yourself down, and so on. Now let's move on. It's time for you guys to practice a little bit. So vamos a practicar. So what I want you guys to do is to conjugate all the following verbs in Spanish. Of course, I want you guys to use the conjugation box just like I did in my previous two examples. And I want you to conjugate the verbs despertarse, lavarse, and sentirse. Now, that's the meaning for each one of those. And as you can see, the verb despertarse is a stem changing, and sentirse is also a stem changing. Now, in despertarse, we have two E's. Remember, the rule says the one that's closest to the ending is the one that we change. So that's the E that you guys are going to change. And sentirse, there's only one E, so that's the one you guys are going to change from E to IE. Okay, so please fully conjugate those three verbs, do your conjugation box, and make sure you give me all the conjugation forms for those three verbs. Okay, guys, so that's it for today. Those are the notes on reflexive verbs and reflexive pronouns. So remember, if you guys are done taking your notes, Make sure you guys, number one, conjugate all the practice verbs before you submit your work. Number two, highlight and underline any important questions and ideas. And finally, take those pictures of your notes and upload those pictures to Google Classroom so you can get full credit for this assignment. Thank you, and I will see you in class. Adios.